Tommy Barnett, The Power of Half an Hour. Take back your life 30 minutes at a time. Read by Alex with Books Forever. I dedicate this book to my administrative assistant of 40 years, Lynn Lane, who helped me live my life by schedule and the half-hour principle. Introduction: The Power of Half an Hour. My name is Tommy Barnett. I'm a pastor, and I have devoted my entire adult life to helping people connect with God and find better ways to live. I could fill up this book and more with all kinds of spiritual and practical ideas about what works in life and what doesn't. I don't think it would be good stuff, but I have one practical idea that I know from my own experience rises far above all others. I admit, it's not an overly unique concept, like the invention of the internet, for example. However, it's an idea that has helped me realize success and great satisfaction in all aspects of my personal and professional life. I mean, everything, from personal goals and dreams, to marriage, to raising a family, to relationships, to work. I believe the idea can change your life though, as it's changed mine. More importantly, it has helped me to serve God and others more effectively. Trust me, my idea isn't rocket science. In fact, it's something so simple that anyone can understand and benefit from it. I believe the idea can change your life, though it has changed mine. I call it the power of half an hour. Many people think of half an hour as a minimal or meaningless gap in time. Downtime to catch your breath between periods of major effort. But the truth is, your half hours can determine the difference between success and failure. Your half hours direct and shape your future. You can literally change your world in 30 minutes, in the same way that your effect on the world is felt one life at a time. So it is that effect delivered through your careful and thoughtful investment of your half hours. The beauty of this reality is that anyone can do it. You don't need a PhD, and you don't need a life coach to pull it off. All you need is to accept the idea. Have a clear sense of your God-given purpose. Examine your activity patterns. Sensitize yourself to your time choices, and start taking advantages of the power of half an hour. Every half hour in your day is a power-loaded resource. Your choice of how you spend those minutes is the focus of this book, which I intend to make a practical conversation about a resource that we misunderstand, abuse, take for granted, and ignore. I want to help you become the person God intends you to be and accomplish His plans for your life. And in order to do that, you need to use your small increments of time wisely, not just big slices of time that are devoted to both routine daily activities and major life events. I agree with Harvey Mackay, who said, "Time is free, but it is priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. And once you've lost it, you can never get it back." I know that it's not easy to find even a free hour in the world that we live in. I have also learned that it is difficult to accomplish a great deal in a quarter hour, especially if you need to communicate graciously and genuinely with another person within that time frame. But half an hour? It works. Claiming the power of half an hour. Here's how we will approach turning your half hours into life-changing blocks of time. I will outline how seizing the power of half an hour can make such a big difference in these major areas. And it goes like this: impact, purpose and goals, faith, character, dreams, relationships, advancing God's kingdom. To help you remember key themes in this book, each chapter contains half an hour power principles. By the way, researchers tell us that most people never finish even reading the book that they start, because they think there's too much helpful information in these pages for you to abandon the content before you even get to the end. Let me suggest that you do 4 simple but practical things as you read this book. First, read the book in half an hour spaces in your schedule. Each of the chapters in this book is short enough to easily read in half an hour. You might want to have more than one block during a day when you read the book, but start this practice as you engage with this book. In addition, at the back of this book, you will find a personal power of half an hour action plan. This plan is to set up and help you over a 30-day period fully incorporate the power of half an hour concepts into all major areas of your life. You have heard that it takes about a month to establish a new habit. I urge you to use these 30-day plans to make the power of half an hour a habit you will never break. Second, if something strikes you as personally helpful, jot down notes about the changes that you need to make. Too often we are so intent on getting through a book that we forget that some of the useful insights or challenges it provides. Third, pray that God will help you to implement these things you discover in these pages or in your related reflections that will improve your life experience. Fourth, and finally, express a commitment to someone you know and trust that you are going to integrate these simple changes into your lifestyle. Ask that person to check up on you once or twice a month to see how you are intentionally being with your half hours. That simple act of accountability will prevent you from reading this book from just being another helpful forgotten task. You may also wish to find the mutual encouragement in the learning the half-hour concepts by attending a small group discussion. A guide for such a study is included at the end of this book. Write a comment down below for what you guys think. I've been practicing these principles so long that I can now say that I'm a product of my half hours. I don't always get it right, but I'm very aware of the gift of life and the value of time. My half hours, the ones I carefully plan, as well as the unplanned ones I discover, are committed to doing His will in my life because I want to serve our God and others. I've been practicing these principles so long that I can now say I am a product of my half hours. If you get your half hours right, God will not only change your life, but also use you to alter the lives of people and organizations you influence. I sincerely believe that the future is not going to be defined by those who can rely on their intelligence, their talent, or their good looks. Instead, the future is dependent on the choices made by God's people in that time that He has placed at our disposal. Part 1. The power of half an hour to impact your life. Change your destiny. Half-hour power principle. 30 minutes can wreck or redeem a life. Wonderful and bad things can happen in a mere 1,800 seconds. Just ask a man I know named Carl Schultz. He experienced the power of half an hour in extremes. Carl is a born salesman. From his very youngest years, he displayed unusual persuasive skills, figuring out ways to make money by selling things to his friends, and later on to adults. It is that talent that has served him so well. In the early 80s, Carl, tired of selling for the benefit of other people, and decided to begin his own company. He started a firm that sold bullion numismatic coins and precious metals. He quit his day job, moved a few office supplies into his bedroom, and began working on his new operation with less than $50 in cash. Carl hustled up to foster his startup. He called up old suppliers and clients from his former place of business and talked to friends and relatives about his new venture. Slowly, he built a clientele and a reputation, but he struggled to grow the business and to make ends meet. After speaking at a trade show in New Orleans, Carl was contacted by one of the people in attendance to discuss investment options. They set up a time to meet a few weeks after the conference. The potential client, a CPA, was interested in investing substantial sums of money, but wanted to test the process with Carl's firm using some smaller amounts before engaging in large deals. The one wrinkle was that CPA insisted that his transactions be conducted in cash and nothing be reported to the government. This was soon after the federal government had instituted a new law requiring that all transactions above $10,000 in cash be reported to the IRS. Carl was unaware of this new law and explained it to his client. The CPA, however, was adamant. If Carl insisted on reporting the transaction, the CPA would have to take his business elsewhere. An intense 30-minute conversation about compliance with the reporting law occurred. Throughout that exchange, Carl pondered his company's precarious financial position and the benefits he would receive from several small investments that would lead to serious money from this demanding client. After half an hour of negotiating, Carl talked himself into doing the deal without reporting anything to the government. As he reflected the pros and cons of the arrangement, he landed on the side of feeding his family and sustaining his company rather to adhering to the letter of the law. He could not justify passing up the potential profits. Before finally consenting to move forward, though, the CPA had concerns of his own. Wary of Carl's intentions, he demanded to know how he could be so sure that Carl wouldn't mess up the transaction and get them both in trouble. Carl confidently assured the investor, "There's nothing to worry about. I do this kind of thing all the time. You'll be safe with me." Comforted by Carl's compelling and persuasive manner, the CPA agreed to move ahead with the deal. After a few transactions were expertly and smoothly handled by Carl, the CPA visited Carl's office with a fellow investor. They slid a briefcase with over $200,000 in cash. Carl had an uneasy feeling about what was going on. This was the payday he had been waiting for, yet he felt queasy inside. After opening the briefcase to inspect the money, he walked over to his window, which overlooked the building's parking lot. As he pondered the current transaction, he noticed the parking lot was packed with black-crowned Victorias. Seconds later, there was a loud crash, and the door to his office flew off the hinges. 24 law enforcement agents rushed into the room, holding badges and guns, while another 24 held down positions throughout the company office and building. There were agents from the FBI, the IRS, Secret Service, and local organized crime units. It turns out that the CPA wasn't a CPA at all. He was a special undercover agent of the IRS, posing as an investor. Carl was immediately taken into custody, and his company's records were thrown into boxes and hustled into the cars below. The company's employees were shocked. Eventually, Carl was indicted on 2 counts: illegal racketeering and conspiracy to commit fraud against the federal government. That original 30-minute conversation, after which Carl decided to knowingly break the law in favor of sustaining his business and family, was going to cost him everything he treasured in this world. Carl faces the music. As the authorities were preparing their case against Carl, his lawyer discovered that the incriminating tape recording of the initial 30-minute conversation had somehow been lost. Carl's lawyer was ecstatic and proclaimed that they could beat the charges if Carl could plead not guilty and claim the conversation never even took place. That sent Carl into another round of soul-searching. That's when I entered the picture. As a member of our church in Phoenix, Carl had not only been attending services faithfully for years, but also spent a lot of time on the prayer mountain behind our church. Right after he had heard the good news from his lawyer about the missing tape, Carl drove down to the mountain to seek God's direction. He saw me on the other side of the mountain praying, but did not disturb me. But after I returned to my office, he followed me there and asked my assistant if he can get me in a few minutes alone with him. "Pastor, I can get out of this mess scot-free if I just tell the judge that the charges against me are false, and I did not do what they claim. But I feel torn as whether I should be protecting myself or telling the truth. What should I do?" "Carl," I responded, sensing the pain and indecision and uncertainty that he was enduring. "I know that you do the right thing in this situation, because the right thing is always the right thing to do." I think he was a bit disappointed that I didn't give him a more definitive directive, but he thanked me for my counsel, left my office, and drove directly to the office of the prosecutor. He managed to get past the receptionist, making his way to the prosecutor's office, where he confronted her. Before she could stop him from talking, he blurted out his confession. "Ma'am, if you say that what I did was really a crime, then I must be guilty, because I did it." The prosecutor, alarmed by the legal implications of the accused confessing to her, shouted for him to stop talking and to get his lawyer before he said another word. She covered her ears and shooed him out of the office. Confused by her reaction, Carl left as instructed and called his lawyer, describing what he had just done. A string of profanities coursed through the phone line, along with some other impolite questions about Carl's sanity. The months between his arrest and the trial were the darkest days of Carl's life. He contemplated committing suicide as a way to provide his money for his family. He prayed fervently for God's forgiveness. He wallowed in grief, thinking about all the suffering caused by that wrong decision he had made in a simple half-hour meeting. His business was at a standstill. The company's records had been confiscated. Employees had quit out of fear of being tainted by the firm's reputation if there was a fraud conviction, and the office doors had been chained shut. The word came that the prosecutor was likely to seek a 17-year jail time for Carl for the acts of dishonesty that he had engaged in and wanted to admit to doing. After hours and hours of argument with his own legal team, Carl reached the courtroom on the day of the trial and pleaded guilty to both counts. Before the half-hour sentencing hearing was concluded, the judge asked Carl if he could have any final comments. Once again, Carl offered an unexpected comment. "Your Honor, I don't know why the system is set up this way, but if the intention was to scare the daylights out of people like me, and to assure that I will never break the law again, then I can assure you the system's working. This has been a total nightmare, and I am embarrassed by my choices, and I'm so sorry for breaking the law. I won't be testing the law in the future." The judge watched Carl, then reviewed a few of the documents in his case file. When at last he responded, the judge miraculously showed Carl grace, giving him 5 years of probation without any time in prison. "I rarely have people stand before me who do not only admit their guilt, but also pledge to stay straight," he explained. Something tells me I should give you a second chance. Don't prove my intuition wrong. A destiny altered. Now, a quarter century later, Carl's life is a dream come true. His business is thriving, having complete billions of dollars of transactions since the day in the court. That scary half an hour in the courtroom was the beginning of a new life, one in which he strives to always tell the truth and act with integrity. It began when he pleaded guilty, against the advice of his high-powered and well-paid attorneys, simply because it was the truth. And it ended with his admission of remorse and fear in the jaws of the justice system. Another unusual expression of honesty and humility. Against all expectations, Carl describes 1986 as the best year of his life. He now has a healthy marriage to his wife of 35 years, a wonderful relationship with his now grown daughters, and a reputable and profitable company. He is a generous donor to our church and other organizations. He humbly talks about not deserving any of this grace from God, and the opportunity he has now to bless others. All of this was jeopardized by the power of half an hour. Before the trial, he used up that power to bring disgrace and hardship on himself, his family, and his employees. During the trial, he used half an hour to resolve his difficulties by advancing the truth. How about you? I bet that if you took a half hour right now to make a list of significant choices and actions you've undertaken during the course of your life that have happened within a 30-minute time period, or noteworthy outcomes that resulted from the accumulation of your efforts over a series of 30-minute segments, you would be surprised at how much of your life has been influenced by these time blocks. It's true. You can turn your life, or someone else's life around, in just 30 minutes. Armed with the words of God, and the ears to what God would like you to say through His Holy Spirit, things can change radically for the better if you're willing to invest that little amount of time just to get things right with God. He won't force you to do so. It's your choice. But it's time well spent. Hello everybody, this is Alex again with Books Forever. I hope you enjoyed this preview of The Power of a Half an Hour by Tommy Barnett. This is yet again another project that I have thrown onto my plate while I work on additional books for you guys. I'm starting to do that thing where I add a lot on my plate and I have to learn to dial it back and just take it at one step at a time. But I do want you guys to be aware that I'm working on several projects for you guys, so I appreciate all of the patience that you guys have while I figure out a work schedule. If you guys enjoyed this reading of The Power of a Half an Hour, please let me know in the comments down below if I should even continue this project. I am starting to use a lot more sounds now, and I'm not sure if they are copyrighted or not. So this video is also a way for me to test out those things. Remember, if you want to see more exclusive content, click on the link down below. You will be redirected to the Patreon. The Patreon is a place where I explore all of my creative ideas and talk about plans for the future. I also post all of my videos there and the ones that I cannot put up on YouTube. It's a way for you guys to help support me, stay alive, and keep bringing wonderful content to you guys. I would like to take this moment to thank all of my lovely patrons and all of you lovely bookworms that have checked out the Patreon so far. You guys are what keep this channel alive. I love you so much. And with that being said, I love all of my bookworms. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a wonderful day.